Yep.
All right, it's 2:00, and this is Mashpee Sewer, Board of Sewer Commissioners. And we don't have a quorum yet. A couple of members are going to be late, but we will still hold the meeting. We just won't be able to vote on any issues. But in the meantime, we'll follow our usual process, and I'd like you to all stand so that we can do a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we'll just recognize a moment of silence and consider all the good stuff that's going on in the world as well as the things that need our attention. Okay, is there, the first part of our meeting, we call for public participation. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Okay. Then we would call for a review of the minutes and a discussion, but since we can't vote on them, we're going to leave that for the next time that we do have a quorum. And the old business that we're going to start with on the agenda has to do with the, good afternoon. We just call for public participation. Are you interested in having anything to say at the meeting as a member of the public?
Yes.
Feel free. If you would like to speak.
No, I'm sorry, I just want to.
You just want to sit in?
Thank you.
Okay, well, you're welcome.
Meredith, Phyllis left me a message. She's not coming.
Okay, so if Phyllis isn't coming, then we won't have a quorum. But we can still listen to some of the issues that need to be discussed, and we can table them for when we do have a quorum. And hopefully, Mr. Towle will be able to come. He was held up on a previous appointment. But Catherine has done an amazing job in working on the website revisions. Is there anything you'd like to catch the?
I'll just say what we've done,
Up on.
because the important thing was to get a vote to move forward with something today.
Yeah.
We've basically met weekly to try and move a few things forward. We have 3 documents we've been working on, basically a summary text to replace the current text on the homepage of the Sewer Commission. And we made one teeny tiny change last Thursday after meeting with the town assistant manager and Terry Cook. And it was a good catch. That's why we wanted to fix it. And then we have a project overview, which we've gone over a couple of times. Ray and Meredith gave me some pointers yesterday, and I've updated that, so it's at the latest. That could potentially be voted on for us to post once the sewer project information link is ready. And that leads me to the third one. The third is a list of, I think it's 9 now, 9 particular actions that, actually 11 particular actions or requests that we want to make for action by the IT department within a brief time frame, if possible, so that we can restructure the Sewer Commission website to be a little bit more friendly for us to continue to work on the structure and the content and file naming conventions and that sort of thing. So all 3 of those things are ready to vote on today. So we'll just have to table them for now, I guess. And we're already working on the next list, so-called request for IT, things we already know we want to do but are not part of that first structural list. So that's our work in progress. That's all it is. So.
And I think what has really happened with all the work that you put into this and is that we're simplifying the website. And all of the things that Catherine has noted, on one side of the menu have been reduced and combined, and now the next part will be to populate the new titles. And that's essentially where we're going.
Yeah, we're moving stuff into historical documents that don't need to be there. And we're basically trying to update the content and improve how people find things, hopefully.
Hopefully.
So,
I don't know how many of you have actually gone into the Sewer Commission website and have spent a lot of time reading the material. You can get really caught up in it because so many of the documents relate to other documents and you don't know where they are exactly. But again, thank you, Ray Jack, for all of your input and your help in doing this project as well. Yeah. Okay, we will move forward since we won't be able to take a vote at this point. However, we do have an opportunity to hear a review and an update on the latest construction from Mr. Ray Jack, our town engineer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This will be brief because a lot of the work was consumed on Route 28, of course, so, you know, that drew a lot of questions. But now that they're off of that. So anyway, on Collection System North, which is Contract 2, the mainline sewers are currently being installed on Butler. Then after that, they're going to send that crew over to Drew. Butler is essentially done as of today, so they were pretty quick on that, and I expect roughly the same on Drew when they get there. For what it's worth, they're really ahead on Contract 2. Okay, that's going to be reflected on the financials at the next meeting when I show that, but they're really ahead of the curve there. So for Collection System South, which is Contract 3, mainline sewer crew, they have two crews, mainline crews, one on the north, one on the south, working. So the mainline crew is currently installing the main sewers on Shipwreck, and then they're going to proceed with mainline work on Ship's Anchor, and then beyond that it'll be Port Hole and Ship's Rudder and all the rest of them as the summer moves forward. Then for the Water Resource Recovery Facility, or the plant on Ashers, they completed the concrete pour for the foundation walls on the equalization tanks. So the concrete is all done on them. They'll be removing the forms for the equalization tanks this week. Well, maybe not this week, now that I think about it, because I was just down there this morning. They were still up, okay, and they were working on the forms for the process building, so that might be next week that they actually take them off. But they are assembling the rebar and the concrete forms for the process building walls. That's coming along very well. They began the excavation for the process tanks. They're starting to form that now. And they began excavation for the preliminary treatment building as well. And that was during the week, that's going to be during the week of May 21st. The concrete and underground pipe work will continue throughout the summer months. Virtually all of the underground piping for the facilities is already in place. Which brings me to your hard hats. I guess it's a graduation of sorts, if you will. It's almost impossible with given everybody's schedule for me to try to schedule visits to the site at the plant with all of you. This way, you're able to go out on your own and visit the site. The only thing that we ask is there's a big white trailer as soon as you come into the entrance gate, not the construction entrance gate, which is further up toward the transfer station building. This is the green gate down where the cars are parked. But if you come in there, just knock on the door at that first trailer that you see. It says GHD on it. We have an on-site rep there who will escort you onto the site, answer any questions that you may have, all right? Please be careful. I mean, my preference would have been to be able to have site visits when it's at ground level, all right? But this way, going up to the areas that are excavated is relatively safe, okay? Just, I would expect that you don't want to go down into those areas, all right? But you can see quite a bit, and I think it's a valuable exercise for everyone to be able to actually see the underground piping, especially because once it's covered up, you're never going to see it again. Okay, so it's an opportunity to see the plant growing from the ground up, all right? So I would encourage everyone to do that. I do apologize with regard to the hard hats and the town seal. It doesn't like that little curve on the front of the hard hat, so it has maybe a couple little ripples in it. I do apologize for that, but anyway,
Goes with the,
and that's it.
Could you just repeat again when the piping will be still open so that we know when we could still go visit?
It's open now, and the major pours now are going to be on the process walls, okay? And then they'll be setting up the process tanks. But the underground piping for the tanks is going to be visible at least through next week. It's already in, but it will be still visible. And it will be visible actually to a large degree once the base slab goes in on the tanks itself. You'll still see where the underground piping is. But right now, within the next week would probably be a nice time to see it all. And the rebar going in, there's a lot of rebar on this. But, yeah.
What purpose does the rebar serve? Is it to hold the cement primarily? Is it it's the form that the cement actually fits into?
Well, yeah, first you put the rebar up, okay, and then you have rebar ties. They have to be placed very specific as to how you put that rebar together in order to have the appropriate strength and wind shear strength and everything once it's constructed. And then they will put forms on the inside of the rebar and forms on the outside of the rebar. And then they pour vertically downward between the forms, and then they can remove the forms, you know, after it's complete. And we do what's known as core samples for brake tests, okay? So they do a brake test first week and then another brake test for a 28-day brake test. But that determines the strength of the concrete to ensure that the mix was appropriate and what have you, so.
And the weather's good for it right now because the weather is like even. Yeah,
Yes.
terrific. Yes, Joe?
A little more graphic explanation about why you use rebar would be if you took a small block 9 inches wide, like a roasting pan, and you suspended it on 2 sharp edges, I could go over with my hand, 2 inches thick now, cement, break it right in half, okay? If it has rebar in it, I'd break my hand.
Got it.
So rebar gives you tensile strength
This one.
of your component. Concrete gives you compression strength. So the combination of the two is one of the best, you know, materials for building because it will resist movement, it will resist everything, you know.
Great. Thank you. It's a good explanation.
So what we know now is I don't think that Mr. Lyons is going to be giving any karate chops to the walls down there.
No, not if there's bar in it.
Good deal. We'd like to have you keep your hands.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jack. The next item on the agenda is to have a review by GHD, so I assume that's going to be Anastasia who'll be
Yes.
presenting. Thank you. Do you want to give us your full name, please?
Sure. So I am Anastasia Rudenko from GHD, and I am working on the current Notice of Project Change project, and the evaluations that we'll be discussing are part of this project. So as a review, this project is one of the components of the town's 2015 Watershed Nitrogen Management Plan. Did you want to turn the lights off? Oh, let me. I'll keep talking and it'll come up in a second. Perfect. But the town has a. Thank you, Jack. Ray. The town has an approved watershed nitrogen management plan. It's a multi-decade plan. So one of the requirements is to go on in intervals and review some of the assumptions that were used to build that plan and update them as necessary. So I have the evaluations that we're doing as part of this, looking at the assumptions that were made for reliance on private facilities and use of sending flow to Joint Base Cape Cod, the shellfish propagation program. And when we review those assumptions, we'll be developing updated TMDL compliance plans. So the plan is looking at the entire town, both watersheds, Pompanesett and Wacoit Bay. However, what we've been asked to talk about today is specific sewer sheds that have been identified by the Sewer Commission as potential extensions to the plant that's currently under construction at the transfer station. So the plant that's currently under construction is what's known as Stage 1. It's, so the plant is designed to be expanded into 4 stages. This first stage is 120,000 gallons per day, and each stage will add another 120,000 gallons per day. Under construction also is the collection system, which will provide flow for a portion of that capacity. And the capacity for the collection system has 2 components. The first is raw wastewater, so that's the wastewater that's generated by the different properties that are connected to the system. And that wastewater is calculated using parcel-by-parcel water use data of the properties that are within the collection system. And that's anticipated to be about 64,000 gallons per day. When we design a collection system, the state also makes us have an allocation for clean water that gets into the system. So as the system ages, there's opportunity for both groundwater and stormwater to enter that system, and we have to hold an allowance for that in the capacity. Because it's a brand-new system, because it's municipal construction that's being supervised and tested, we can use the lower end of the range that the state mandates, but there is an allocation of about 12,700 for infiltration and inflow. So those 2 combined are 76,700, which means that there's approximately a little over 43,000 gallons per day remaining of collection system that could be connected to the existing capacity before the second stage has to be constructed. And at this point, the tanks are going in for all 4 stages, so the upgrade would be for the equipment for stage 2. So I just wanted to pause there and see if anyone had any questions about the capacity. Yes.
Just one thing of nomenclature, the word stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 has been thrown around so much. We got to stop using the word stage.
Okay.
May I suggest you say that's the processing line instead of stage when you refer to line 2, line 3, and line
Sure.
4, because they're all confused and there's
Yeah.
too many stages.
Great. So we'll talk about process line 1.
So what you're
Yeah.
saying is in process line 1, we
Yeah.
could do another 250 properties roughly.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So these are the 5 areas that have been selected by the Sewer Commission, labeled A, B, C, D, and F. And we've also been asked to look at a revised F. So what's shown on the graphic at the right is the original 2F. In the revision, there would be connections for more properties, including Windchime, which is a current private wastewater treatment facility. In this scenario, we would reuse the existing collection system and build a new lift station that would convey flow to the plant under construction. Seamist, Deer Crossing, Sandalwood, Roche Plaza, Deer Crossing Plaza, and Great Pines. So it's looking at more connections expanding to F. And we've been asked to provide a project cost on a per connection basis. And so that's what's shown in this table here. And then the last line, 2F, that is that larger revised area. So these are the project costs that I presented at the last meeting, with the exception of 2F, which has been revised to include the additional collection system that would be needed for those additional properties. And then dividing that project cost by the estimated number of connections as an estimated cost per connection.
I'm looking at 2 things. 2B,
Sure.
you're saying it's going to cost roughly $61,000 per connection.
Yes,
You're saying that in 2B, there's 1,149 potential connections?
yes. So 1,149.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And down below under 2F, if we revised it with the other units south of the circle, you're saying 661 units averaging 87,000.
Yes, and the
Per
reason.
unit.
Yes.
Now, the question is, with the connection, potential connection, with wind chime being one pipe and one pumping station, where the heck are you getting all this cost?
The reason that that area is higher than the others is the force main that would be required from that area to the plant. So it's a very long force main, and that drives up the per connection cost.
It's about the same distance as 2B to the transfer station.
But 2B is a series of gravity.
Okay?
Um,
The mic.
Speaking to you, Mike.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, so the way that 2B is laid out, it's a series of lift stations that pump into the next section of gravity. So the force main isn't as long. Yes.
I have a question. So if the mains were going down Great Neck Road,
Yes,
so I'm talking about 2F.
yeah.
And so if it would be pulling in wind chime, deer crossing, whatever else is along there, but aren't there other housing, residential and commercial units along there?
There are, yes.
So if I'm thinking that the line is going down the public road, and there are these opportunities for the different places to connect, there's another housing development, there's a small development that has a dentist office and all. So is that a bigger or an extra cost in order to connect them even if they're on the main?
There is the cost of running the collection system and building lift stations to pump it into
Pump
the
it,
main.
yeah,
But
okay.
once you run that main, you want to maximize how many connections to help offset the cost of the force main. So then you need to look at how much capacity you have existing at the treatment plant and find the balance. But yes, absolutely, you would want to maximize how many connections for that force main.
So it's possible that if 2F were selected, there'd be even more units other than the 661 that we've talked about.
Yes.
And that's beneficial or that's not beneficial?
On a per connection, it would be beneficial. It would start bringing that 87 down.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Mr. Lyons, you had a question?
Yeah, it was a little convoluted. I'm trying to straighten it out in my mind.
Welcome. That's okay.
Oh, I know what I was trying to say. If we pay attention and really do our jobs right, particularly the engineering, there's only one issue here, and that's taking nitrogen out of our systems. That's the whole game.
It's our primary drive.
All the rest is BS. So what we have to do is make sure that when we go into an area and we make a collection, that we're collecting nitrogen, the most nitrogen for the dollar of going into that area. Now, that was why I suggested we get down and start with like wind chime, because that gave us the injection system we needed to get it up to the plant, and all the other stuff could then go into one gravity tank there to be pumped up to the transfer station. The actual amount of nitrogen we would get out of 2B area isn't the same as the nitrogen we would get out of the 2F areas, because the 2F areas are much closer to the water, and they literally hammer it. And it gets all 30 milligrams per liter of the nitrogen into the river. Up north, in 2B, they don't go into the river directly. They go into a whole watershed area that takes 5 miles to get to the Pompanesett Bay, and by the time it gets to Pompanesett Bay, there isn't 30 milligrams of nitrogen left. So we're not getting the efficiency by piping it from there, from up north, down to the transfer station, because we have a natural process all the way from the north part of town to the estuary that's getting rid of half of the nitrogen by itself. So my question is, are these sound cost figures? Are they nitrogen-efficient cost figures? Maybe we can look at it that way?
So that is one of the things we'll be looking at in the phasing for this project.
Okay.
What we were asked to do here is look at specific areas.
Right.
The next step is to balance the phasing, the financials, to develop a fiscally sustainable plan, and then the other, where Joe's absolutely right, taking out nitrogen in one area is not equal across town. So balancing those factors also. And that'll get incorporated into the proposed phasing plan that'll be brought for consideration.
Thank you.
Yes.
Catherine?
That's the phasing plan that you would come up with, potentially, you're being open to variations on the border themes of these 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. I mean, that configuration
Yes.
geographically could change, right?
So if we see opportunities for a more cost-effective approach, we
Yeah.
will recommend them
Okay.
for your consideration.
That's what I wanted. I wanted to know that that was not set
Yes. yeah.
entirely in
These
stone.
are great
Okay.
building blocks to start.
Okay.
But as we continue our analysis, we'll
Okay.
we'll
Thank
look
you.
at that. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Is there a handout to this effect?
I can send this around after the meeting.
Okay, wonderful.
What is the most appropriate way to distribute information to the Sewer Commission?
Through Ray.
Through Ray? Okay. So I can send it, Ray, I can send it to you if you could send it out. Perfect. Yeah, I will send this out to everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any recommendation so far, what we do to the next 250 units?
We're still putting together the building blocks, so that'll be at a future meeting.
How soon could we have your recommendation to finish filling out line 1?
So we would anticipate this summer.
Well, it's subject to change. I mean, don't
Yeah.
get nervous about it.
Yeah, yeah.
When are you going to take your first shot at it? 'Cause
I'm an
sure
engineer. I
things
want to
are-
look at the big picture with treatment, recharge, and collection system. But we are getting close to having a recommendation. So I would say in the summer, right?
We got to figure out where we're going to get the money to finish this, even line 1. Because with the delays that were not of your issue, of your problems, but the delays that the town put
Yeah.
on this system
Eh.
ended up costing us about 30% more, and as a result, we're 30% out the window
And that's part of why I want to do that recommendation as part of the whole plan,
as soon as possible.
as soon as possible. But part of the whole plan. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to the next area to be considered, which is a review of the status of the aquaculture component of the nitrogen mitigation plan. So Ray, do you know who was going to do that?
I'm sorry, what was the question? For the aquaculture. Right. GHD reviewed that with Ashley.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's,
No, GHD had reviewed the results with Ashley. I'm not sure that they're prepared to give a full response on it yet, but
Okay.
they should have some indication.
okay, great, thank you.
So I can just give a little bit more information. So the Shellfish Department does have a proposed revision to the original program that was laid out in the 2015 program. So we're looking at what are the best areas to continue with the shellfish propagation and where are areas that we may need to rely more on sewer as part of the overall program. So that'll factor into the phasing also.
Oh, okay.
And then there'll remain there will always be a contingency of if the shellfish needs to be scaled down, there will be sewer areas identified for those areas. But the preferred plan will be to continue with shellfish in the areas that the Natural Resources Department recommends.
I just have a question before you leave the microphone, please. Is there an idea yet of where we are right now with the aquaculture? I know there have been several reports by Natural Resources about where the aquaculture program is going. And from what I remember, it's been mostly reseeding, putting in more shellfish seeds, but we don't yet have a result of what the effect has been. Is it too soon in the process to figure that out? Or are there any, do you know if there's any information about that?
So I do know that the department has been taking measurements and are starting to quantify those numbers, as well as looking at the quantity that they are able to implement as a department. And that gives an initial estimate of the nitrogen that's been removed. I think it would be good if Ashley comes to a meeting and we can speak to it together, so she can speak to her program.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
I
Do you know-
I
go
have
ahead.
one question. I don't know whether you
just stay
can
up here.
answer it, but I found the DNR report in the town's annual report interesting because of the 2002 experiences. Yeah, it provides some information, but it left me with a question. And I don't know whether you can answer it, but they have basically a general shellfish program, typically where they give out licenses to families and businesses and everybody else. How separate is that from what the town is funding?
So there were areas in the original plan that were specifically targeted for nitrogen management. They are part of the recreational programs, right? So you can get permits and harvest those shellfish, but there are specific areas, and it matters where that area is.
Yeah.
For nitrogen removal.
Thatch Island and Little River and
Yeah.
Great River.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so part of the, what's been learned as the program is implemented is where are these doing well? Where is the water too degraded? And we may want to scale back the assumptions for the shellfish program as part of the update.
Yeah, what I can see is they redesigned the condos to be up on the
Oh,
water
yeah, the
column.
actual- yeah.
And yet there are others like quahogs and others that are being left on substrate. But the oysters are being lifted off the substrate. Is that, am I clear
so
with
there's
that?
two different ways to,
Yeah.
right, you can have floating beds or you can have beds on the.
So they're doing
ground.
both still? They're doing
So
both?
Ashley should speak to
Okay.
that at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, why don't we go back and revisit, now that Mr. Towle is here? We can go back and revisit a few items that we need to vote on. And the first one that we wanted to consider were the minutes from the last meeting of April 27th. And I understand, Catherine, you had a question about that.
Yeah, I had a question for Ray. Page 2 of the minutes from April 27th. Item number 2, discussion of Phase 2 sections to be targeted. The second paragraph says, Mr. Jack stated that this is a great opportunity to reevaluate and reconfigure the entire town. He said that GHD's task through the notice of project change is to rephase the entire town based on the 2015 plan, and that he agrees on building upon the major capital investment, which is Phase 1. Are you comfortable with that statement?
As far as the entire town?
Well, I wouldn't have walked away from that with that impression. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that statement, and I don't question your judgment. I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable with that statement.
I am. And the reason being in that the notice of project change is something that is mandated under the MEPA process. So you have 5 phases under the original 2015 plan. After you're into Phase 1, you are obligated to reevaluate all phases as well as the shellfish propagation program, all right? and redefine what needs to be redefined. We look at everything and then submit a new plan, all right? And that plan will be different. If for no other reason, Phase 2, A, B, C, D, F changed
Right.
it,
Yeah.
okay, automatically. So there were components in there that used to be in Phase 5, Phase 4, Phase 3, Phase 2. Those are going to be recharacterized now, if you will. So is it the whole town plan? Yes, it is.
Okay.
At the time of the original plan, Joint Base Cape Cod was kind of at the top of the list as the option for some of the areas on the western portion of town. Well, that's changed, okay? It's no longer owned by JBCC. Now, it is owned by a private concern, a company called Converge, all right? So that has changed. Even from a rephasing concept, a lot of Phase 2 was out on Johns and the Shumet Pond. So that will change. So it will be a complete rephasing. It doesn't mean that every single thing in there is going to change, but a lot of it will, of necessity, based on what the results are. Okay, and then when you go into Phase 2, you will have a Phase 2 under the new plan. It may have a different name, but it'll still have another phase. The town will be obligated to reassess that once again. So at each phase of the process, this process, meaning the notice process change process, will happen again.
All I wanted to note is that the 2015 plan, as is, leaves the door open to take into account all these changes, right?
The
And-
term is
and-
adaptive management.
Yeah, and back to that again. But the fact that it says based on 2015 plan, without mentioning the potential for change, or the account.
You could just refer to that plan as an outline, that's what it really is.
Yeah, I didn't want to make much of this. I just wanted to make sure you
It's
were
gotta be
comfortable with that
reviewed
statement.
Every
because
5 years, that's the name of the game.
I understand that, and you understand that, and he understands that, but someone who reads this may not understand that. That's all I'm
Okay.
saying. Caution.
Okay, are there any other questions about the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the meeting notes from Thursday, the 11th. I'm sorry,
27th,
the 27th, April 27th.
thank you. And Mr. Towle, you
Second.
seconded it, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye. Joe?
Yep.
Okay, so it's passed unanimously. It's all accepted. All right, can we just go back then again, Catherine, for you to just present the 3 things that you want us to vote on?
Al, I did a quick summary of this while you were out. but-
I read it this morning.
Okay,
Again.
that's what I wanted to
Yes.
make sure you
No,
had the
no.
opportunity to do that, because what I would like to do is, I know we voted on the homepage text before, but we did make one minor change. The previous text had said Board of Selectmen, and we wanted to change
Select
that to
Board.
Select Board. So that's the only change, so I wanted to get an approval on that change to the text. The other thing we wanted to get approval on, if we could, would be the Mashpee Sewer Project overview. If the text is okay, we can approve that. I haven't requested it be posted yet because I'm waiting for the third item to be fixed, which the third item, which is the IT request, it has to go through Ray Jack. Ray and I went over these again on Monday, and at this point, I think this is ready to go, this list to IT and see what they say. But I'd like to get these things done before we do anything else. And this is a shortened list from what I had before, because I started to just develop a second request. That's okay. So if we could get a vote on all 3 of these items, I'd be thrilled. to work on.
Do you want to take them one at a time? Are there
Yeah.
any questions or concerns about the summary text for the Sewer Commission webpage? That's a short paragraph where just the only change from the last time you looked at it was that selectmen was changed to select board. So is there a motion to
So
accept?
move.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now there is, the changes for the homepage for the sewer commission is now accepted. That can move forward. For the overview, are there any questions or concerns about the overview? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to accept it?
So move.
Second?
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So then the sewer project overview is ready to go to IT, and that leaves us then with the next one, which are the specific areas within the webpage, moving some parts of the menu and combining information from the different parts of the menu, which will then, the next stage will be to populate those with, as things have been moved around. Are there any questions or concerns about the overview? I'm sorry, about the recommendation to IT? Okay,
No.
hearing none, could we have a motion?
A motion?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to accept these, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so then we are all set to send these forward to IT.
Good.
So
Is
that-
there a timeline from when it gets to IT, what happens?
No.
Sometime between now and when the project's complete? Okay.
Yeah, we were actually hoping to be finished with the review of the website and the moving information around by the end of June. And so by then, everything would be to IT. And the next time we meet with them, we would be able to then set a date perhaps from them, once they see how extensive the changes are, or how, we might see them as extensive, IT may not see them as extensive.
Vice versa.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, we just
So,
don't know. Yeah.
From that point, after we have a next meeting with them, we can probably get a better idea of how long it will take to revise it. So people who are reading the website now are going to get a mixed picture because it's not yet changed. It will be changed by when, we don't know.
Yeah, and it may be bit by bit.
Right.
But we'll get together with them as soon as possible, once they get the list, and see if they have any issues. Okay. That's great, thanks.
Thank you for all the work you've done on it. Are there any?
Thanks for your help.
Are there any other topics or comments or questions about today? And about any information that was presented today? We always see the representative from Mashpee Enterprise here, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any specific questions for us? You do a great job reporting what we're talking about, and we appreciate it.
Mackenzie Ryan, Mashpee Enterprise. Hi. Off the top of my head, no, but I know you guys are super open to communicating with me, so if I have any, I'll email them out or to Mr. Jack. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we appreciate your attending, as we appreciate select person Colombo being here as well. Thank you. So, if there are no other topics to consider, then can I entertain a motion for adjournment?
Move we adjourn.
Second?
And wait a second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
We are
Aye.
now adjourned, and I want to thank you, Susan Donovan, for all your work, and Mr. Ray Jack, and the GHD representatives. Thank you so much